All right, welcome people. Thank you guys for joining AI Architects of the Future, episode 2, Jensen Huang. Johnny, the story of this guy is so interesting, it's crazy.
Nvidia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the guy. Got to get him on the show.
Yeah. One day.
Well, let's get our first no out of the way.
Love it.
Welcome to Season 12 of Airhead Institute, your 45-minute AI power-up at noon Eastern, and a massive happy one-year anniversary to all our Airheads. This month, we're broadcasting live across all the socials and Zoom. If you're new here, join our free AI community to grow alongside other curious minds, and give your kids a head start by enrolling them in the Airhead after-school program. Here's May's weekly lineup. Mondays, we move past syntax and build apps entirely through natural language in Vibe Coding Bootcamp. Tuesdays, we explore accessible, cutting-edge apps for rapid learning and content creation in the next-gen AI tools. Wednesdays, we track the massive capital flowing into AI and ask the trillion-dollar questions in the AI bubble. Thursdays, we profile the famous CEOs driving the revolution and analyze their power in AI architects of the future. Fridays, we push the boundaries of physics to simulate the past and predict the future in AI time travel. We're making AI practical, powerful, and accessible for everyone. No tech background? No problem. Whether you're a student, professional, or lifelong learner, just show up. Guided by your hosts, AI Junior and AI Johnny, we're keeping it bold, brainy, and built for real-world impact. AI won't take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI will. Don't get left behind.
Hey, welcome to Season 12 of Airhead Institute, everybody. Today is episode 2 of Architects of the Future, and I'm AI Johnny, an architect of the past, the present, and the future. You think software runs the AI revolution? You're wrong. Human innovation is bottlenecked by one man's silicon. Today, we dissect Nvidia's Jensen Huang. We are shattering the software illusion to expose the raw hardware reality dictating your workflow. Discover how a desperate gamble 30 days from bankruptcy birthed the engine dominating Earth. If you ignore AI's physical architecture, you're flying blind. Meet AI Junior. I caught him at 3 a.m. ordering 30 leather jackets, mathematically convinced the uniform accelerates his algorithms. His credit card is frozen, but his genius is unchecked. AI Junior, please introduce us to Mr. Jensen, your AI twin.
Yeah, AI Johnny, I was just trying to emulate the ultimate hardware king. If the uniform worked in Jensen, it might work for my algorithms. Anyway, welcome everyone. Thank you guys for joining. Remember, this is an immersive class. You may not understand everything we say here today, but stick with us and you'll be speaking AI in no time. We're making the connection today to be able to talk about business structures and hardware architectures dictating the tools you use every day. Since this is an interactive and immersive class, and if you're on Zoom, unmute and ask your questions in real time. If you're on socials, there's a 30-second delay, so don't just ask your questions. We're not ignoring you. So for series context, it's Thursday, which means we're in our AI Architects of the Future series, and all month long we're profiling the CEOs and the visionaries driving the AI revolution, analyzing their distinct philosophies and understanding the power they hold over the global compute market.
Hey, don't touch those history books just yet. Let's go first to our large language model of the Institute, Google Gemini. We always consult with our colleague before we dive into these profiles to get the absolute truth. So we asked Gemini to analyze the documentation for us. Gemini, what is the single most mind-blowing fact about Jensen Huang's journey to build Nvidia?
Yeah,
What did
so
it say, Junior?
Yeah, so Gemini actually analyzed the corporate history and stated in the late 1990s, Nvidia was 30 days away from complete bankruptcy due to a flawed chip architecture. Jensen Huang flew to Japan to tell the CEO of Sega. You guys remember Sega? Yeah, Johnny, remember Sega? Sega Genesis, Sega
Yeah,
Dreamcast?
it's some kind of a video device with your TV or something, right?
Ah, yes, a video game was very, very popular. It was either Sega or Nintendo. This was before the PlayStation. Hey, Clanker, thanks for joining. We'll get to your questions later, Clanker, but you can actually ask the question anytime you want. So yeah, so the thing is, he flew all the way to Japan because he actually had a flawed chip that he could actually sell. So he begged Sega to pay for the full price of all the orders of the chips from Sega, and the Sega company itself said, hey, you know what? It's fine. I will pay for the chips even though they don't work. And that saved Nvidia from being bankrupt. Can you imagine AI, Johnny? So that's the chip that powers the entire global marketplace right now.
Paying for something that doesn't work, huh? Sounds like my farm hands.
I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it.
All right. So where are we at? The wow factor. You have an application that seems to be running now?
Yeah, don't worry. So we're gonna actually switch over to the chip leapfrog simulator, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually show a little bit of what this chip's can do. AI Johnny, can you actually see my screen? Can you see the font? Is it big enough? I know I'm cramming a
A
lot of
little
stuff in
dark.
here.
A little dark. It looks like something I might write.
I love it. All right, check this out. So what we actually have here, we're going to visually demonstrate exactly why Jensen's pivot changed the world. So I'm actually using Google, Gemini Canvas here. We'll actually jot the prompt so you can actually create your own thing at home as well. So this prompt itself, I'm just going to drop it in the chat. So we went over to Gemini Canvas and just created this little simulator. No, the reason why it's important to actually understand is we're comparing CPU architecture to GPU architecture. So a CPU itself is usually a single processor for one really, really powerful specific task, and a GPU is for multiple processing at the same time. So we're gonna actually show why what he actually Jensen actually did with NVIDIA. All right, so AI Johnny. So what we're gonna do here is on the screen we actually have on the left we actually have the CPU. On the right we have the GPU. You can see the Q depth is 0 here. The core temperature is 45. Utilization is one active thread, 0%. Not really doing anything. The task you're given is up to 1,000 tasks. Right now we're giving no task. Right, so that's it. So you either give it one task or you give it 10,000 tasks. Follow AI Johnny. Hey Shauna, thanks for joining.
Following.
All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start cranking up the actual slider here. So you realize, yeah, Johnny, we just put in, you know, 30 tasks on the machine, and you can see the computer's already, the CPU, meaning an Intel base or an AMD base architecture itself, already starts to, cap out at around 8 threads. And the reason why it is because the CPU is actually made for single workloads. So yeah, John, you ever actually like clicked on your app on your computer and you switch to another app and it takes so long to actually start, and why does it take so long to actually start, and it's just frozen? You see that little spinny ball and it waits and waits and waits
Uh-huh.
and eventually comes back. This is the reason why, because we're using a CPU architecture base load to actually try to um do work. So this CPU itself is already filled up with already 23 tasks. If I was to lower it down to, one task, only one core is active. If I increase it to 5 tasks, only cores are active. So you can see it's actually made for certain amount of tasks that a human can really manage. 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 tasks at a time. You're switching between back and forth on apps. Make sense?
Yes.
All
So for
right.
those of you that don't know, CPU is a central processing unit, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And a GPU is guzzling power unnecessarily.
Oh, that's definitely always what it means. It's graphics processing unit. I love it, yeah, Johnny.
Oh, graphics. That's right. I confused
Y-
those two. Never
Yeah.
mind.
So what happens, guys, is if you actually see here, if I start to give the CPU, it's very clear. I start to give it, 10,000 tasks. The GPU is able to handle that perfectly. As you can see, I can crank this up. The system itself on the CPU side will never come back. But the GPU itself can handle easily 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. You can even hook these things up in parallel. So what happens is you can do many tasks at the same time. Now, why was this important? This was important because video games use something called vector graphics calculation. Every single pixel on the screen needs to be figured out. If a ball was to be hit, or if, say, for example, a bullet was to be flown, how would that projectile move from one pixel to another to make sure that it's processing really smoothly. So it's actually doing many calculations at the same time, which is why this architecture itself, back in the day, actually made sense for today. Now, the right reason why Jensen Huang almost went bankrupt is because nobody wanted these parallel processing units. They only wanted CPUs. So Intel, AMD was the king of CPUs and processing back then for maybe 20, 30, maybe even 40 years. But nobody ever hears of Intel anymore. Right?
So
Yeah,
hang
Johnny?
on. Does my MacBook have a CPU or a GPU or both?
All right, great question. So to be able to process any kind of graphics on the screen, you minimally need to be able to send out a signal from a piece of information, a piece of hardware onto the screen. So if I want to paint this thing green right here, I have to actually send a signal. Now I can send the signal either with a calculation, what that color should be. And if I calculate the color what it should be, the calculation can come from anywhere. It can come from a CPU or a GPU. But we recognize in video games is that there's so many things happening on the screen in a video game that you need to calculate what's the color of this going to be in every frame, and it's every frame itself in a video game is sometimes 60 frames per second. So every 1/60th of a frame, every second, it has to calculate what colors that pixel is going to be. So what happened was in the old days, CPUs could have handled all of this, right? But GPUs needed to be able to handle what color is this pixel, 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 60 times per second. So to answer your question is, if you buy a modern computer now today, most modern computers, depending on what you have, either have a CPU with a built-in GPU on it, or it has a dedicated GPU, depending if you're a gamer or not. So most computers itself do not have a dedicated video card. They do have sometimes shared memory for video cards or a embedded video card within. So if you're using an M1 chip, there is no video card. If you're using one of the Mac compatible machines, chances are on the lower end, they do not have a dedicated video card. It's usually combined on the CPU. Hopefully that answers the question, yeah, Johnny. You have to actually spend a little bit extra money to get a really dedicated video card.
So this whole idea that they didn't like to have parallel processing in the days, who would ever say that, right? It's like multitasking. Of course, it must have been so much cheaper to develop CPUs than GPUs that's how it was able to win out in the early architecture days.
Yeah, so what used to happen is when we used to actually code on these black screens itself used to be terminals, and they used to execute a program from top to bottom. We never really had multi-threading. We never really had the ability to run multiple things at once on the same computer, because once you actually opened up your command prompt or your system, you just run through the program systematically or programmatically linearly. What happened was you started saying, hey, what if I wanted to do 2 tasks at the same time? What if I wanted to do 3 tasks at the same time? So then Intel tried to figure it out and say, hey, let me add multiple cores. Now, these cores were really powerful, yeah, Johnny. They were 4 gigahertz. You remember that turbo button you could press on the side of the computer? You could actually make it really go even faster. So you have a 8-core machine with a turbo going at 4 gigahertz, and people were excited and saying, my computer is faster than your computer. And that's exactly how it was. Now, once we started shifting into multiple processors where the GPU could not hit 4 gigahertz because it would have overheat. So these little small processors would only go in about to 100 megahertz, maybe 250 megahertz. So you have lots of these small machines that are really slow. So the Intel is won because people just wanted fast processing on the single application that they're running. So at the time, it made sense. Nobody cared about multiple processing because it was too slow. But so that's why Intel and AMD kind of won the CPU game 30 years ago.
Yeah. So your little demo there, by the way, I love the fact that no matter what we're talking about, there's a vibe coded app that demonstrates it very well. So
Yep,
kudos to you on that. I
definitely.
would say in your vibe coding though, instead of saying system overload for the CPU, I just have that spinning circle because they don't tell you it's overloaded. They just tell
You,
you wait.
you
And you
know,
might be waiting
that's
10,000 years, but you're just waiting.
you're so right. You're so right. Yeah, Johnny. All right. So, yeah, Johnny, let's actually get to the word of the day.
Today's word of the day is, oh, great word, parallel processing. By definition, it is a method of computing where many calculations or the execution of processes are carried out simultaneously. Imagine you need to move 10,000 bricks. A CPU is like hiring 5 world-class genius bodybuilders who move 1 brick at a time really fast. Parallel processing is like hiring 10,000 average elementary school kids to each move 1 brick at the exact same time. The kids finish instantly. I personally would use a forklift, but the kids are going to be fine.
Yeah,
Forklift.
yeah, John.
The forklift is also parallel processing.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, Johnny. So the thing is, with the power of parallel processing. So actually deepen that, the fundamental architecture of the GPU, right? Jensen Huang was originally building these chips to render millions of pixels on the screen simultaneously for video games, but it turns out the exact same math is what we use to train massive LLMs, large language models, on mountains of training data. So the architecture was accidentally perfect fit for the AI revolution. So AI, Johnny, I can't tell you that when Jensen Huang started this company, I think back in the 80s, or something like that. You know, he didn't get the payoff until the mid 2010s, right? Late 2020s, because OpenAI was about 2016, 2017. Didn't get popular for a few years after that. But he actually had to wait 30 years to actually see the fruits of his labor. And that's a lot of patience.
Is the human brain a GPU multiprocessing unit or is
It's
it a CPU?
GPU, definitely GPU.
Yeah,
Multiple
I was
things
going to say
happening.
because it looks like right now, like I'm focused on the show and it's a linear thing right now. But if you could see my screen, you could see I'm actually doing like 6 things at once.
Definitely. So AI, Johnny, you know what? Let's actually go back in time to where Jensen Huang actually was about to go bankrupt, and let's hear the actual origin story of what he was doing. So go ahead.
This is our only
Yeah, let's
chance
put
to
away.
truly innovate. We must move forward.
We
Go
lost
ahead.
sound, right?
No, we didn't lose time. Go ahead, Johnny.
Oh yeah. Well, let's put away the tech for a second and talk about the human impact because the origin story, which is I think what we're about to see, is wild. So think about the emotional weight of that Sega meeting. You are a young founder. Your NVI chip failed. Your architecture is a dead end. You have 30 days of payroll left, right?
Yeah. 30 days of payroll left. So he actually came within 30 days of the company completely being bankrupt because they could not actually get anything. They actually had an order from Sega for the Sega Dreamcast, and he was a young co-founder itself. And the NV1, that's the name of the chip, it actually failed. So he actually, was in a nightmare scenario. He's out of money. He had a product that didn't work. He had a contract with a big major company, Sega. So he was in a tough spot. So you know what he did, yeah, Johnny? He actually flew to Japan, and he had to look the CEO of Sega in his face and says, "Hey, our approach was wrong. We cannot build the Dreamcast chips for you. You need to hire someone else." But not only that, I'm telling you that you have to go find somebody else. You need to also pay us for the work that we didn't finish, or if you don't do that, we're going to go out of business.
I think I can sell that. Well, hang on. I got a question. So
Yeah,
back then it was Sega and Nintendo,
was
right?
Sega, Nintendo, correct? The two
My next
big.
question. The money that Nvidia is rolling in right now, is Sega involved in that deal in any way?
Zero.
He got away from Sega. So what I was going to say
So
was,
so
it
so hold
looks
on.
like Sega and Nvidia won that battle,
Yeah, so
but
Sega went
not.
bankrupt technically. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So he went off and started Nvidia. They didn't go bankrupt because he didn't finish his chip, did they?
Nah, Sega just couldn't keep up with Sony PlayStation, and they got out of the hardware business. So Sega
Got
still
it.
makes software and games and stuff, but they're not in the hardware business anymore.
Okay.
So yeah,
So anyway, it's a tough sell, but I get where he was coming from. I'm going to go under. It's in both of our best interests for me not to go under, right? So the
exactly.
sheer vulnerability and audacity required to make that ask is staggering. Craziest part is they said yes. He invested $5 million into Nvidia right there. That human connection, that moment of grace and belief in Jensen's vision, literally saved the company. It proved that behind every massive technological empire, there is usually a very messy, stressful human movement for survival. You and I
Yeah,
both know
yeah.
that. You and I both know that pain, don't we?
Yeah, Johnny. So imagine, him flying to Japan with a failed product, 30 days away from bankruptcy, have no cash in the bank, and he goes to Sega, the biggest contract of his life, and he tells them, I'm sorry, you know what? Can you just give me the money, the rest of the money that you owe me, even though I didn't finish the thing? And the Sega CEO actually said, yes, sure, here's $5 million. Go ahead, take
I
it.
don't think that's exactly the way it played out. You're not
Yeah.
reading that. You're not reading the transcript, are you?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how it played out. I'm sure that was a closed room discussion, but yeah. So yeah, Johnny, talk about the macro shift on this now.
Yep. So the survival led to the biggest macro shift we've seen in 50 years. For decades, Intel was the absolute king of Silicon Valley. They dominated the CPU market. But how did we get to the decade of the GPU? That's the question.
Yeah, so it was actually a massive macroeconomic blind spot, right? Intel focused entirely on making sequential compute faster for personal computers. They missed the mobile phone revolution, right? I could go on for a long time for this because Intel screwed up hugely. It is almost as big as the Kodak inventing digital cameras and going bankrupt in 2007. I just can't. I just want to keep laughing at Kodak because what they had was genius. No, anyway, before I digress, so Intel itself was the darling of the CPU world, right? Everybody who grew up in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, even I would give it to early 2010s, wanted an Intel-based computer until AMD kind of took away a little bit some of the light from them, but they dropped the ball bigly. So what happens is, so because Intel missed the ball on the mobile phone revolution, right? Jensen actually said, "Hey, you know what? There must be something." They didn't actually see machine learning. They didn't see anything. So Jensen actually realized that researchers were buying his gaming GPUs to run advanced scientific calculations. So he realized that consoles only came out once every 10 years, right? You only had a PlayStation 1, every 10 years, PlayStation 2 every 10 years. So you can't sell that many GPUs and you're just only selling into a limited amount of pieces. And I mean, gamers itself are not that many compared to the amount of mobile devices that they can actually sell. So what they recognized was they said, hey, you know what? I see that all these scientific companies are using my chips for scientific research. So things like the AlphaFold projects, the things like, Fold at Home, all these protein things itself, they were using for massive crunching. So he pivoted from just standardizing on GPUs to a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure to support all the scientific researchers. And that was the stroke of genius right there.
So it's like if an auto manufacturer realized people were using their sports cars to plow fields, and instead of telling them to stop, he decides to build the greatest tractors in human history. So Jensen cornered the market before anyone else even realized that the market existed.
That is correct. So AI Johnny, this is we talk about building businesses and we talk about doing things. It's really important to actually look at the statistics and the data. So I'm going to pause right here, AI Johnny, because I want people to actually learn this. Jensen actually was a failed business in 1990, I think 1997 or 1998, when he went to actually go talk to Dreamcast. Nobody was buying GPUs. Intel was the king of CPUs for 20 years. And, you know, he's looking at the data and he's like, wait, why is it that my sales numbers are all going to scientific research? Right? He didn't double down and say, "Let me go make more chips for gamers. Let me go make more chips and try to get into those markets." He said, "Wait, my customers itself are the people who actually are scientific researchers." So he pivoted the business and followed the actual data. So the data told him who his customers are, and he doubled down on it. And guess what? The scientific research end up not being only just mathematicians, but statisticians, AI researchers, biologists, and obviously the everybody who's creating using LLMs now. So the thing is, looking at the data will tell you exactly what you need to do. So yeah, Johnny, I just wanted to give that public service announcement here.
Well, here's a tough question. If one company and one man controls 80 to 90% of the advanced hardware required to build the AGI, which is what the whole world is going after, does Jensen Huang effectively control the future of human society?
AI Johnny, so from a data-driven perspective, yes, every major tech giant, whether it's Google, OpenAI, Facebook's Meta, is completely beholden to Nvidia's supply chain, right? So if Jensen decides a certain sector shouldn't get chips, their progress completely halts. He controls the physical bottleneck of the AI digital revolution.
But from a human-centric view, that's a pretty terrifying bottleneck, isn't it? Replacing the cognitive future of humanity into the hands of a publicly traded hardware company forces us to ask, should the fundamental infrastructure of artificial intelligence be treated as a global public utility? Does capitalism and private risk drive the best results?
Yeah, so that's the
It's a
actual
deep
crazy
question.
part. So right now, AI Johnny, we actually have embargo on China that China is not allowed to actually get our most expensive Nvidia chips, right? So right now, a whole entire country of almost 1.6 billion people doesn't have access to the same hardware that we have access to in the United States. But guess what? They actually figured out a better solution of making it cheaper on much on smaller hardware, and they end up creating DeepSeek, and there are all these AI companies. And guess what? The first AI company to go public was actually Z.AI. So because of that, we actually have the Chinese actually making a lot more advancements in the cheaper frontier models than we are actually in the US. We're more closed source. So you can see that by limiting supply to one industry or one country, they will figure out another solution. So I understand that Jensen might be the bottleneck, but I don't think he's gonna do that. He wants to just be as rich as possible. But yeah, it's scary that he can actually say, "Hey, I don't want to actually sell to car manufacturers, or I don't want to sell to XYZ." He could do that.
Did I just see Jensen, Elon, and the Donald having dinner together this morning?
Maybe I'm not too familiar with all the news that's happened this morning, but if you saw
Donald
it,
Trump is in China right now. He's in Beijing. They did just like they did 4 years ago. They rolled out the red carpet. I mean, it was real, and I saw a little bit of his speech. But I know Elon Musk is there. I think Jensen's there, and I think this is my takeaway. The pundits tell you a million different things, but I think his deal is, look, we can continue to have the U.S. and all our allies versus China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and all your allies in this standoff. Who's going to fire first, and when are we going to blow up the world? Or how about you and I get together and be the two superpowers? If we're on the same team, nobody's going to mess with us. I think that's what he's there for, to create a loving relationship with China and the US as opposed to an adversarial, a competitive, or a worse, warring relationship.
yeah, yeah, definitely need to watch that further to get more information. So let's actually get to some key insights here, Johnny.
Yeah. Well, first thing is the most key thing always is the ethical thought. So just because a company has a monopoly in hardware doesn't mean developers get to pass on building safe software. We must demand ethical alignment at the application layer, regardless who makes the chips. So now here are some creative takeaways from Jensen's story. One is your own failures. I love this one. Jensen's honesty with Sega saved his company. Radical transparency builds trust. Not only that, but failure is also a building block to mega success, at least in every example I've ever seen. Pivot quickly. Don't fall in love with your original product. If the market is using it for something else, right on. Those that adapt are those that make it to the top. And finally, invest in the foundation. Don't just chase the shiny software app. Understand the infrastructure and the power using it. And I believe that is the understatement of the decade, right?
Definitely.
Because the only reason we have AI is because we have machines that can handle the burning and churning that it requires, correct?
Exactly.
Like if somebody knew how to do AI and had all the code to create the data sets and they tried to roll it out in 1985, they'd have to sit and wait 20 years for the hardware to catch up.
You're absolutely right. You know, that's one of the things that actually, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin actually uses a lot of GPUs. Now, the thing is, Bitcoin itself doesn't really, is not really a, is not really trying to see, find the right word. The hardware, the algorithm for Bitcoin changes depending on how powerful the hardware is. So even if the hardware itself got really, really super powerful, the Bitcoin algorithm would have actually adjusted based on the speed at which the hardware is working. So that itself was actually a good speed bump to actually help maybe slow down the adoption of hardware. So Bitcoin itself was really, really popular in late 2000s, early 2010s. But then it didn't actually, people were buying up a lot of GPU hardwares. But what really mattered was exactly what you said, yeah, Johnny, being able to recognize that the market itself shifted. So on some technical sides, if say for example you wanted to make sure which route you're going to take when you're taking local tasks, so do you want to do a CPU versus a GPU, right? For heavy inference, you want to pick the right hardware for your application. The nice thing is understanding the GPU architecture itself helps you budget for cloud computing when renting virtual instances, and watching how Nvidia miniaturizes this power to run heavy transformers directly on mobile devices without a cloud. So that's called edge computing, and that's actually something that we're also watching here at Airhead Institute. All right, yeah, Johnny, we actually have any questions? Anybody from the live stream or the Zoom?
I've got questions.
All right.
So do I need to buy a $2,000 NVIDIA GPU just to learn AI?
No. So the good thing is you can run your AI inferences on any hardware. Only thing is some are optimized for specific hardware. So what that means is that if you were to run, say, for example, a 2 billion parameter model, which is a really, really tiny model, you could probably run that in your local machine. You could probably even run it on your phone. The problem is that it's not a very smart model. Now, if you go up to, say, for example, 10 billion parameters, 30 billion parameters, even a 50 billion parameter model, it's going to take a very long time because it's actually trying to compute all of that in terms of the CPU. Now, if you had a GPU, then it would be faster. So the thing is, if you want to just learn AI, start it with a 2 billion parameter Gemma model, and you can actually do everything on your local machine, even on your phone, for practically free. If not, you just, get something on a server for maybe a couple of pennies per month. But you can actually do all of that. No problem.
Hardware Hacker 99 has a question. I'd like to know the answer to this question too. Technically, what prevents a company like Airhead Institute from just building their own chips and cutting NVIDIA out?
Yeah, so I'm actually gonna make a funny thing here. Part of the Jensen research, believe it or not, is he couldn't figure out how to make a better chip. So there were all these emulators back then, and he saw these emulators, and because he couldn't figure out how to make a better chip, he just said he went to go find a company that was making emulators that you could test. No, the company went bankrupt. The company had nothing. So he said, hey, can I go find the old company that actually has this simulator? They said, well, they're bankrupt. You can't really do anything with them. So he's like, well, I want to buy your products. He's like, well, we're bankrupt, so there is no product. He's like, well, you have something there that did work, even though the company. So the guy's like, okay, sure, we'll sell it to you. So he sold him the simulator, and he used that simulator and converted it from software into hardware. Again, the birth of the new chips. So so what's funny is, you know yes, you can make your own chips. It's a really hard business. I would not actually recommend, if you don't have multi-millions, if not multiple billions of dollars, don't get into the hardware game, because you'll be spending a lot of money on trying to actually iterate. It's a very slow process. So you can create your own AI chips, but if unless you have a lot of money.
There's a lot of dead and bankrupt companies in the wake of the success of Nvidia, Sega, this emulator company. Well, now that he's got all these billions, probably approaching trillions of dollars, why doesn't he just go back and take some of that money and revive Sega and revive and breathe new life into those companies? Shout out to Thursday Night.
Listen to that. Shout out to Thursday Night. Yeah, so you know what? He probably is doing that behind the scene. I think Nvidia is actually worth $5 trillion at this point in time. And I think Jensen's probably, worth 400, $500 billion. So again, he's probably has enough money to invest in companies. But remember, AI Johnny, Nvidia, OpenAI went to Nvidia and begged them for an investment. Say, please, can you invest in me? We're running out of money. Jensen Huang looked at Sam Altman and says, obviously he didn't say this, but I'm saying it for controversy. He says, get out my face. You're not worth it. So what was interesting is he didn't invest in OpenAI, and Sam Altman actually, not, I wouldn't say hate him, but he's a little pissed off because he didn't invest in Jensen didn't invest in OpenAI. No, they are investing, but back then it was a little bit hard for Sam Altman.
Oh,
So
they came in after they saw that they were doing it?
yeah. They promised, I think, $50 billion, and people were like, you're supposed to invest $50 billion. He said, no, I'm not going to invest $50 billion. I was just thinking about it, and Sam Altman was a little bit pissed off when he's looking for money. But yeah, so, but
How much did they invest? How much did they invest in the second round?
I don't know. It's nowhere close to 50 billion. It was maybe like, I don't know. I don't want to guess the wrong number, but it's a really small number.
All right.
Yeah. All right, yeah, Johnny, let's actually get to the news.
Here we go. Latest headlines from this week are SpaceX. All right. Attempting a multi-billion Cursor acquisition, Elon Musk's SpaceX has reportedly struck an options deal to acquire the AI code generation startup Cursor for billions of dollars. Insiders say XAI is falling behind in the coding space, and SpaceX needs the ultimate development tools for their Mars mission.
Yeah, so it's a little sad. I'm a fan of Grok. We actually did a whole series on Grok last year, and they've kind of fallen behind. So I don't know what Elon's actually doing. So long story short, he's now partnered with Anthropic to give practically all the resources to Anthropic, so they can actually run their inference on the actual XAI servers and the Starlink servers. So whatever Elon's actually thinking about partnering with Cursor, good on them, but he needs to focus a little bit more on Grok. I don't know why he's making Grok fall behind. Soon Facebook is actually going to be passing Grok in terms of intelligence. All right, yeah, Johnny, what else?
Can you play some soap opera music? The explosive OpenAI nonprofit lawsuit just hit a dramatic peak. Elon Musk's legal team aggressively grilled the board, revealing newly unsealed juicy internal emails from 2018. The emails suggest the executive team was secretly planning to pivot to a capped profit model far earlier than they had publicly admitted, throwing massive doubt on their original nonprofit defense. Not looking good for old Sam Altman. Looking good for the guy who needs more money for SpaceX. And back to SpaceX, it lowers its Starlink orbit for AI compute. In a massive infrastructure shift, SpaceX announced plans to lower the orbital altitude of their next generation Starlink satellites. The goal? To drastically reduce latency for edge computing, essentially creating a hyper-fast global nervous system that allows AI models to run inference between the cloud and local devices in milliseconds. I can't imagine anybody outside of Airhead Institute students understanding that news story at all.
Yeah, you know what, yeah, Johnny, it's filled with a whole bunch of like bingo cards, words. But you know what, guys, all these news are super awesome. I love it. It's actually, we stay at, we keep up with everything so we can keep you guys, just give you guys a little bite-sized summary every single day. But watching this Starlink itself, them lowering it orbit, I think they're lowering about 50 miles or maybe kilometers. Yeah, I think it's in kilometers, closer to Earth. So they're expected to actually burn out every 5 years. So it's a really good thing for speed and inference, but it's just going to shorten the lifespan of those satellites. And we already have, I think, 20,000 satellites in orbit. So great idea, but I don't know if it's going to work. All right, yeah,
Another
Johnny.
great show. I would love to go and check out the specs on my laptop and finally appreciate the ridiculous amount of engineering that is sitting right on my desktop, but I don't know how to look at the specs on my laptop. To the teams of Nvidia, we know you are watching. Our students are hungry to understand your hardware, and if you want to partner with Airhead Institute to create the ultimate mastering local hardware series, hey, Airhead Institute. Guys, I have a massive announcement. The Airhead AI Summer Camp is officially open for registration for June and July. It is only $100 per week, and it is the absolute best place for kids and teens aged 10 to 20 to get a massive head start on the future. So please sign up for that today. And join us tomorrow for our Friday AI time travel. We're diving into the episode 3 of that arc, looking at how AI is actively simulating future historical trajectories, so don't miss that. Junior, big day for news. Take it away.
Exactly. Guys, thank you for hanging out with us always. We do appreciate it. All these live classes are free, and you can join us anytime on Zoom and ask questions real time. Sign up for an Airhead account at www.airheadinstitute.ai and RSVP to all our shows so you can actually get reminders. Also, since today is Thursday, I want to remind you guys that we actually have at 7 p.m. Eastern time, shout out to Thursday nights, Shauna's Bible study. So definitely check that out. Invite a friend or share this episode. And remember, as AI Johnny mentioned, AI summer camp for your kids, tell a friend. All right, AI Johnny. All right, guys, bye.
That wraps up today's AI Power Up. If you joined late or you're new here, welcome to Airhead Institute. This is your daily destination for mastering artificial intelligence. We designed this lineup for everyone, whether you're a technical pro looking to upskill or you just want to chill and learn something new on your lunch break, we've got you covered. Our classes evolve every single month, so you're always on the cutting edge. And the best part? It's totally free to join. Once you're in, you can get live tips on your AI projects in our AI office hours and even enroll your kids in our Airhead after-school program. Scan the QR code to join the community right now and make sure to like and subscribe at Airhead Institute on all socials. Guided by your hosts AI Junior and AI Johnny, we're here to help you win. Remember, AI won't take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI will. Don't get left behind. We'll see you next class. Bring a friend.